This is real. Sony is removing storage from the PlayStation 5, which is crazy. After that, let's talk about how even devs think the PS5 is too expensive. And finally, the PS Link just got its best update yet. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I just got done watching the First Light State of Play. It looks mostly really good. Like, it looks like you're marrying Uncharted with Hitman, which is kind of what I wanted from this game in the first place. The actor playing James Bond is great. The whole sandbox style stuff looked incredible, but the performance was unbelievably bad. Like, it was a slideshow whenever there was any action going on screen. And that sucks because the action moments themselves looked really cool. Like driving a cool Aston Martin, catching up with the plane and jumping onto it with a rope. I mean, it's pulled right from the pages of Uncharted. So to see it performing so poorly, that needs to be addressed, because I looked, the trailer that they were showing through the State of Play was running at 30 FPS, or it was supposed to be. That was nowhere near 30 FPS. So hopefully in the time that it takes to finish this game up, they can address the performance. But if they do, I'm very much looking forward to this, because it's living up to the expectations I set when I heard that IOI was working on a James Bond game. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let's get into the first news story here, because this is like nickel and diming levels that only Nintendo dreams of achieving. So way back when the PS5 came out, like 5 years ago, it did not have a terabyte of storage. It had like 825 gigabytes of usable storage space. But then when they introduced the PS5 Slim, they gave it an onboard storage of 1 terabyte. If you got the PS5 Pro, it comes with 2 terabytes of onboard storage, and then both of them could be upgraded with an extra SSD, which isn't that expensive. I mean, you can get 2 terabyte ones for around $100 now. So it's not a huge ask for the storage increase, but that was during the time when the PS5 was fairly priced. So not only did they just raise the price, but now they've announced that they're introducing a new model of the PS5 Slim that goes back to having 825 gigabytes of storage. So they're taking out like 200 usable gigabytes of space, which is pretty much unacceptable if you ask me. Like, that is an insane level of nickel and diming. If you go look at the price points for 2 terabyte, 1 terabyte SSDs, they have fallen dramatically from where they were when the PS5 unlocked its capability of upgrading the SSD. And I know that they have that caveat that there is an extra SSD slot, but like 200 gigabytes is not going to save you that much money. I understand that stuff compounds, so like saving 5 cents on each PS5 compounds over millions of units, but it's just so cheap. It's unbelievable. The sort of silver lining is that this is only happening in Europe for now, but this is a new model of the PlayStation 5. If they're dedicating resources to putting these on the assembly line to keep making them, I would imagine that once they sell through the stock of PS5 Slims here in the United States, in Australia, and everywhere else, this will become the default model. And then on top of that, to add insult to injury, they just raised the price on all of these by $50. So you get a slimmer model that looks uglier than the original PS5 somehow. It's more expensive and you get less storage on board. And the interesting thing is, because this is starting in Europe, we can't just instantly blame tariffs like we did with the original price increase. So like, I'm really curious why the cost is increasing so much on tech that's over 5 years old at this point. It's unacceptable. Some people are saying that it brings it in line with the launch model, so it's not that big of a deal. Like, if they dropped it less storage than the original model, that would be a much bigger deal. I don't really care, honestly, about the semantics there. There's no reason why 5 years in they should be lowering the storage that's on board, which is literally removing bullet marketing points from the actual unit itself that needs to be justified at this point for how much it costs. And one of the most played games on PS5 just got a huge update, Helldivers 2, which is really fun, but that game is suffering greatly from being over 100 gigabytes now. Like, we are in Call of Duty territory when it comes to the storage that you need for Helldivers 2. And on top of that, the performance in that game has fallen off massively. I have not played it in a long time, but when it came out and when I was playing it heavily for over 100 hours, I could get a locked 60 FPS on my PC no problem with my laptop at 1440p, running it natively. So with zero upscaling whatsoever, it was looking and running just fine. I played the new update last night and it was dropping to like 45 FPS left and right. There was stuttering, the image was breaking down. So I tried to use upscalers. They don't even have FSR. They don't have PSSR on the PlayStation 5 Pro, I don't think either. It's like a built-in resolution scaler, so you actually don't get much performance from using it. And because it's just dropping the internal resolution, there's no upscaling. So it instantly breaks down the image, which doesn't look good. So, I mean, that's like 10% of the overall storage that you get out of the PlayStation 5 out of the box. So it really does sort of not feel like an additional add-on. It feels like a necessary add-on that when you factor in the cost of the PS5, you also have to factor factor in a bigger SSD, you should not be spending so much on hardware that you literally can't afford a game. And I know there's solved for that, at least on the Xbox side, kind of on the PlayStation side, is to say, oh, you could just subscribe to PS Plus Extra for like $80 or $100 a year and get a huge library of games. But that sucks. That shouldn't be how things work, when you already have games and you like buying games and you like using discs and installing your games to the SSD. You shouldn't be forced into these situations where you basically have to upgrade the SSD to store more than 4 or 5 games on the machine, especially because they're forcing you to do it. If they had the option to run it off the Blu-ray, like gave you the choice, that would be one thing, but having to install everything is just a step too far. Like, at the end of the day, their goal is to make money, and they're making it extremely hard to justify buying a console at this point, which is crazy considering their biggest competition, which was Xbox, is completely bowed out of the overall race. This is their moment to do something truly consumer friendly, and at every turn, outside of lowering the price when Xbox raised the price and giving people $100 to upgrade to the PS5 from the PS4, they have made the wrong move in terms of optics, and it's gonna reach a breaking point. They're already seeing the effects of people slowing down on buying games. They're already seeing the effects of people complaining about the price of everything, and it's just gonna get worse until they make a dramatic change. That change was promised to us when Jim Ryan left, but so far since he's left, everything has continued on the exact same way it was going when he was leading PlayStation. So yeah, I think it really blows, honestly, that they're lowering the storage, because there's no real way to look at it other than nickel and diming their customers who haven't upgraded yet. You're making it a lot less justifiable for people to buy a PlayStation 5 in the first place, and you're not going to sell games if people don't have the console to begin with. And that kind of brings us right into the second news story, which is you kind of know you lost the plot a little bit when it comes to pricing, when even big developers like Capcom, who have really supported your console for multiple generations, are coming out and publicly complaining about those price increases. So Capcom just had their big earnings call, and one of the big things they talked about was the sort of failure, I would say, of Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, we'll definitely get into more reasons why I think it failed, but the reason they brought up is that the overall cost of the PlayStation 5, combined with the fact that that game can't run on the PlayStation 4, means that there's just not a big enough user base out there willing to upgrade to this game for Monster Hunter World, so that's why they saw a dramatic fall off from World and even Rise to Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, that's definitely a factor for sure. Like, the overall cost of the system probably makes you a lot more picky and choosy when it comes to what games you're going to spend $70 on. And I think they really do have a point there, but that's kind of missing the forest for the trees with the full situation, if you ask me, because I think a huge reason people avoided this game, outside of the fact that it launched with less content than Monster Hunter World had, which is fine because Monster Hunter World got the full Iceborne expansion on top of a bunch of updates. So I think it's a little bit of a stretch to expect it to start with that much content and then build up from there. Like, it's been a long time since Monster Hunter World, so starting over doesn't feel like the biggest deal in the world to me. The thing that really made it a hard sell, though, to most people, myself included, was the just dismal performance of the game. They prioritized just getting it out there as quick as possible to get it in that quarterly earnings report, and they paid the price for it. People saw the way that it performs on the PS5, the PS5 Pro, and even PC. They saw that it didn't have as much content as the game that they could just go play reliably and have good frame rates in, which is Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter Rise, and they said, hey, maybe I'll wait. They'll finish the game and I'll pay less for it, and I don't blame people for doing that. I am a huge Monster Hunter fan. I had the first game, Monster Hunter Freedom, that I was able to play on the PSP. I had Freedom Unite. I think I had Freedom 2. My brother and I used to play Monster Hunter all the time, and when they moved it to 3DS instead of the Vita, I bought a 3DS just to play the Monster Hunter games that were coming out on it. It's one of my all-time favorite franchises, and leading into this one, all the trailers, even though they showed way too many of them, I was very excited for it, but once I saw the performance, I was like, I'm not paying for this. Like, I'm just done. I'm not paying $70 for games that run like shit, especially when Capcom had a pedigree of releasing games that look and run amazing, not only on the PlayStation 5, but across every platform they released on. Then they have 2 games in a row, Dragon's Dogma 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds, that completely just shit the bed. And I'm glad that critics are catching on to this finally, like 5 or 6 years after it became a problem. The big games that got criticized for it were, of course, Metal Gear Solid Delta and Mafia: The Old Country. But if you've been watching this channel since I started it, I noticed this a long time ago, and I was getting really annoyed at the fact that everyone kind of caveated it as like, yeah, it runs like pure trash, but you know, that's just gaming. I don't accept that. I'm sorry. Like if I go to the movie theater and there's a gray blob instead of a visual effect and then a message at the end on Twitter like, hey, come back in a few weeks when we patch the movie, I'm going right to the front desk. I'm requesting a refund. I understand that in earlier generations, they were working with outdated tech. Like it was old by the time it actually hit market. They had to hit a cheap price point. That was important for growth. We are in the 5th generation of the PlayStation. One of the biggest marketing points for this console was 4K 60 FPS. And now we're lucky if we're getting 720p 30 FPS with games like Metal Gear Solid Delta. So yeah, the price is definitely the factor, but it always comes back to rushed games at the end of the day. They're rushing these games out, they're not finishing them, and then they're throwing their hands up and saying, we don't know why people didn't show up when no one shows up. Finish your games and people will buy them. That is the equation that needs to be achieved. Thankfully, with games like Resident Evil 9, Onimusha, and Pragmata, they seem to have figured out how to get to 60 FPS, but like I'd love to see them go back and finish the games that they released broken, like Dragon's Dogma 2 and of course Monster Hunter Wilds. But you know, the price is a factor, but performance is the biggest factor if you ask me. But let's round out this video talking about the PlayStation Link adapters. So right now the things you can connect to with this thing are the Pulse Elite and Pulse Explorer headsets. The Pulse Elite is definitely worth buying, even though it's a high asking price. It's consistently outclassed every pair of headphones I've ever used for gaming, so I think it's definitely worth it. And that adapter is excellent. You can move it between my Windows PC, my PS5 Pro, my PS5 Slim down here, my SteamOS PC upstairs. It instantly connects, it never forgets. It's just an excellent little device, and they've just made it better because now when you plug it into Windows, it's going to install a driver that allows you to do audio switching on the fly. So you can change the volume of your chat volume, you can change the volume of the game, you can change your mic sensitivity, you can mess with any audio setting you want using it on PC. And I know console players don't like when Sony supports PC, but it's so bare bones what we actually get from them over on PC compared to PS5 that like, if you're selling it with features, I'm fine with them taking at least a year to figure out their PC app to give those features to PC players, because that encourages them to make more of these headsets. If they actually sell well on both PS5 and PC, they're only going to get better. So it doesn't actually hurt if they're taking this long to upgrade them. And I just really enjoy using this headset. But where I'd really like to see it go is be able to connect to a DualSense controller, because putting it in pairing mode to use Bluetooth and then pairing it back to my PS5 is just a little bit cumbersome. So if they could unify it all with this PlayStation Link adapter, so the adapter remembers what controllers are connected to it, and then you can move between devices effortlessly just by plugging it in, that'd be great for people who have a PC and a PS5. It'd be great for people who have multiple PS5s. It's just really weird that they released this thing halfway through the generation and the core accessory for the PS5 does not connect to it. That core accessory being the DualSense and DualSense Edge, because man, the DualSense Edge is just a god tier controller. I love using it, even though I have to keep it plugged in because the battery life is so bad. Every device I'm on, it improves the experience overall. Even if it doesn't have haptic feedback or adaptive trigger support, it's still just the best controller I've ever owned. And I don't know how they're going to improve on it for the PlayStation 6, but that's a 2027 problem, I think. So yeah, make sure you update your PlayStation Link driver if you're using it on PC. Anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.